Hello there, friends. Welcome to episode 20 of That One Gaming Podcast. I'm Colin, otherwise known as Delicious Morsels, and here today we've got Lucas, aka Karn Evil 9. How you doing today, Lucas?
Doing good.
Very good. And we've also got Neal, better known as VMK89. How you doing, Neal?
Doing well. How are you?
Very good. Very good. Excellent. All right. This week, we are going to head back to the past and we're sharing our gaming origin stories. Everyone gets into gaming in different ways and for different reasons, so we thought it'd be fun to look back and see what got us into our favorite hobby. But before we go and talk about what got us into games, let's take a moment and talk about some of the games that we've been playing recently. So, Lucas, what have you been playing?
Well, I've been slowly chipping away at Nier Automata on my lunch break at work.
Excellent.
I also picked Celeste back up in an attempt to try and get through Chapter 9, only to discover that you need basically all of the crystal hearts from the B-sides of the main 7 chapters in order to get through Chapter 9.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well.
It's been an experience.
Unfortunate.
Yeah, and the crystal hearts compared in the B-sides compared to the crystal hearts in the A-sides, they're much harder in the B-sides because it is beating the whole level.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
Usually,
it's nice that you don't have to hunt them down in like you do with the A-sides, but also you have to beat a significantly more difficult version of whatever respective chapter you're playing through.
Oh my.
Yeah.
And a lot of the crystal hearts in the A-sides are just like, once you find it, it's just like solve a little puzzle or something, do a certain thing. And a lot of times it's as easy as look it up.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the one I struggled with the most was the one in chapter 1 where you have to boost in a certain or dash in a certain pattern.
Yeah.
There's one like that in chapter 6 too, and I was like,
yeah.
I haven't gotten the chapter 6 one.
Yeah.
Or maybe
chapter 6 are both very
I might have found it
trivial
and not attempted it in the in my first playthrough of the game, which was long ago, and I don't fully remember.
Yeah. Did you at least get all the strawberries in chapter 6?
No, I'm still working.
Oh, because I definitely didn't.
Colin's not going for it. I have gotten all the strawberries in the 4 first chapters, but on my Switch. So I'm going back through and getting the ones I missed in the first 4.
Hey, got him. Chapter 6 A-side doesn't have strawberries, actually.
That is
true.
Wait, chapter 6?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no strawberries in chapter 6.
That's right.
Yeah, I made the mistake yesterday. I made the mistake yesterday of deciding that as soon as I wake up, that I would play through a level in Celeste, and I was on chapter 6.
Oh
yes. I beat it, but it was a very big mistake playing that immediately after waking up.
Yeah. That would be rough.
Yeah. It was a process. But I got there. Now I'm just got chapter 7 to go, I guess. Now I guess I'll find out what comes after that. I mean, I'm not going anywhere near chapter 9 from the sound of things.
Yeah, you need a lot of stuff. Like I said before the podcast, you should definitely try chapter 8 just to... Like, I don't think you even need to get the crystal hearts to get the mechanic. Yeah. Isn't that right? There's a segment where the mechanic changes before you get to the wall with the crystal hearts?
Lucas? Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, so technically you don't even need the crystal hearts to know the core's whole deal. I mean, you won't know the whole deal because there is obviously a level, but the gimmick.
Yeah. Okay. We'll see. I'm planning on tonight at least getting through chapter 7 tonight. So I can move on to other things like the music for the game.
Yes.
Which is going to be a challenge all on its own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What has Neal been playing?
Well, I also have been playing Celeste. I was inspired by watching Lucas last night at Magic playing the B-sides to try attempting the Chapter 2 B-side again, because I had gotten to the checkpoint. I actually got right to the very end where there's a disappearing block puzzle, and I had given up there, and I saw Lucas get that heart, like, I don't know, how fast was it, Lucas? Like 5 minutes to get past that block puzzle? Maybe even faster?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. Yeah, so I was like, dang it, I shouldn't have given up so free easily. I thought there was going to be a whole challenge, and then it was just the 2 blocks when
Yeah.
Lucas did it.
It's just some really tight wall jumping.
Yeah.
Don't you hate that when you, like, you don't know it at the time, but you get right to the end of something in a game, and
Yes.
then, like, you just fall off of it for one reason or another? Like, either
Yes.
it's too hard, or it's too scary, or something, but, oh my god, that's happened to me multiple times I can think of off the top of my head right now. Like,
That happened with Metroid Other M for me, actually.
really?
Yeah. I got to the Queen Metroid, and I couldn't figure out what to do to get past the Queen Metroid. And then I had to put the game down for a couple of days because we were going on a weekend camping trip.
Mm.
And then when I came back, it's like, oh, I could have gotten this before that ever happened. Yeah.
For me, like, one of the main instances that always springs to mind is the game Fear back on the Xbox 360. And that game, back in the day when I played through it, was freaking terrifying. I got all the way to the end of the game, got to this one part of the game where I was just like, okay, I am just completely freaked out right now. I don't know if I can go any further with this because this game's just freaking me out. Put the game down for like 6 months. Finally, one day I decided, all right, I'm just going to tough it out. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I boot the game up. 5 minutes later, I'm rolling credits. I literally had to step through a door, and that was the end of the game. I was so mad. I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah, understandable. But oof.
Yeah. Good times. What else has Neal been playing? Or has Neal only been playing Celeste? I don't know why I keep referring to you as Neal and not just saying you, but we'll just keep rolling with it now, I guess.
What is Colin playing? No,
Huh?
I'm just going to start referring to you as Colin now.
Okay.
Colin.
All right. That's fair.
Well,
Yeah.
Colin.
Do the
I've
WWE
also-
thing where you don't refer to anyone by like he or you or I. You just refer to yourself as your name.
The boulder wants to face the blind bandit again. No, I've actually been playing BioShock a little bit too. Speaking of scary games,
Hey, that's another good game.
I'm very bad at it.
Me too.
I kind of hate the person who picked the game. um, yeah, I don't know why I thought this was a good game for me, but hey, we're doing it. I know the story's really good, but that's the main reason I'm playing, not for the gameplay.
Yeah.
I did find when I was playing it as well, I tripped up on the controls a little bit too, because they're different from your typical first-person shooter controls, because you've got one side that deals with your guns and one side that deals with your augments and stuff. So
yeah,
I kept accidentally going and switching over between the two when I wanted to do something with the other one.
Yes. And that was further aggravated for me because I'm playing with a controller and it's a PS4 controller on a Steam game.
Yeah.
Yep. Should
I mean,
really just go
mouse and
pick up one of
keyboard.
those wired Xbox controllers for that.
Eh.
Or you can use mouse and keyboard like a proper PC first-person shooter.
Yeah, I've honestly been considering that because I'm probably better at a first-person shooter on a keyboard just because Minecraft.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah, I think in terms of like the gameplay, it's very Metroid Prime for me, where I'm like really good at the whole first-person exploration aspect of it, but combat's not the greatest.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. I was enjoying exploring and getting the little tapes and listening to all the lore.
The lore of this game is beautiful. I love it.
Yes.
Just wait until you get the bees. Everything is better when you get the bees.
I don't know if I've gotten the bees plasmid proper, but like during the whole your genes are all out of whack and I'd get random bees every once in a while and it was so cool. It's just like, I'm king of the bees!
Yeah, the bees plasma is really fun. Plasmid. Yeah. I had fun with that one. And there's no, I don't want to spoil it for you, but there's a spot that makes the bees very, very, very fun. I'll just say that.
The king of the bees!
I'm the king of the bees!
Lucas will go from hating bees in that one game to loving bees in a different that one game.
This time it's completely different when everything is bees because I'm making everything bees.
I control the bees!
Now, also, it's interesting playing through BioShock knowing the twist ahead of time, since I had it spoiled.
Yeah.
Did you guys both know the twist, right? Or did you?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I beat
it's
it.
a song by Chubby Checker.
What?
What?
I have no idea how I managed to avoid it, but I was able to avoid having that spoiled for me all these years. So when that twist hit, I was just like, oh, dang. Oh.
Okay.
I mean, the scene where it happens is a little bit disappointing because it takes control away from you. But then I guess that's also kind of the point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of that scene, but I thought the twist was really well done.
Yeah.
Oh, that twist.
Yeah. Shout out to Chubby Checker for making a great twist.
Oh my.
And I do actually think that song came out in time for it to have been like around for BioShocks.
But did you know the twist of BioShock's plot?
No.
Okay, so you still don't know. Okay, we can't
probably.
Good. I avoided it too.
Yeah, I did not avoid it, but it is interesting.
I mean, my last progress point is hunting down Fontaine, so I probably have found it. So, but I was not aware of it ahead of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So, Colin, what have you been playing?
I have been playing a game that kind of came out as a surprise a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
It came out completely out of nowhere. Xbox did their little showcase thing a couple weeks ago, and then they dropped a game out of nowhere because I've said that 5 times now.
Yeah.
Called Hi-Fi Rush. And it's kind of like a character action type hack and slashy type game, but it's all rhythm based. And it's got this really cool, like, early 2000s Cartoon Network Saturday morning cartoon type aesthetic to it. And it's really good. It's only $30. It's available on Steam and on Xbox, and I highly recommend playing it. I've been having a great time with it. I think I am on the 9th or 10th level now as of last night. Super fun game.
Also noteworthy is that it's a Bethesda game that got a day one Steam Deck release.
Yeah, and it runs fantastic on Steam Deck. That's how I've been playing it. I've been kind of alternating between handheld and docked up on the TV. Mostly docked up on the TV though. The one gripe I have is that the game's settings lock it to 720p resolution, so you can't play with the resolution at all on the Steam Deck. So the textures look a little bit rough, and like the character portraits have some pretty bad aliasing on them, but it's obviously it's due to playing on Steam Deck. It's not an issue with the game itself. It's just that's where the settings land on the Steam Deck in particular. It still runs flawlessly on the Steam Deck, which is the most important part. And with a game that deals so heavily with rhythm and timing, that's also really important.
Yeah.
And yeah, I had a little bit of issues with it playing out with my Xbox One controller over Bluetooth. But I think that's because the vibration just completely kills that controller. So I've had to keep it plugged in. And as long as I keep the controller plugged in, it seems to work okay. But
that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really weird. Like all of a sudden it was just randomly a vibration would hit, and then all of a sudden I just basically lose control almost, and like I'd be pushing one way and character would be going on another direction. I'm like, what the heck is going on? Usually that's a symptom of the Bluetooth signal being a little bit interrupted by either a low battery or some other interference. So as soon as I plug the thing in, it works fine after that.
Huh.
But this game really, really makes me wish that we got more kind of like it, where I wish more games these days would focus more on having an aesthetic and less on just being photorealistic, especially when it comes to like the big publishers like a Bethesda or their parent now, Microsoft, or PlayStation and stuff, where they're just all their big games, aside from Ratchet and Clank, are like third person over the shoulder, hyper realistic looking games. I mean, there's variation among that, because I mean, like Horizon obviously has a very stylized type thing to it with all the dinosaurs and stuff, but it still goes for photorealism above everything else.
Yeah.
And the humor and writing in Hi-Fi Rush is just so phenomenal and on point. Like if you grew up in the 2000s watching cartoons on Cartoon Network and all that, it's like it would fit perfectly right in there. It's just so spot on. And the way that they blend 2D animation with 3D cel shaded animation is so flawless in this game. It's really, really cool.
Yeah. I honestly love the look of cel shading in video games, like, you know, your Legend of Zelda Wind Waker and
remember when that came out and remember when that came out though, and everybody was just like, what is this garbage? What is this graphic style? Like back in the day, cel shading was such a controversial style of graphic.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'd say it's one of the best, really, because it gives you a lot of artistic freedom.
Yeah. Like, you can make your game literally look like you're playing a comic book, and it's beautiful.
You can make your game literally look like an episode of South Park.
Yeah,
they did twice.
All right.
Well, I don't even know if that was technically cel shading because those games,
I don't think it was.
They were literally drawn up and animated just like the cartoon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still gotta play those. I never got into South Park, but those games look so much fun.
Honestly, like your protagonist wielding a flying V just kind of makes me think of like FLCL or Fooly Cooly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool because it's like actually he's got like this magnetic rod that comes out of his arm, his mechanical arm, and it's magnetized. So it pulls in a bunch of scrap metal from all around the area, and then it just manifests in the shape of that flying V.
Oh, cool. He's metal AF.
Yeah, and like all of his like skills are influenced by music and stuff. So like there's like a bunch of special moves that you get, and like you could do like this move where he hops on his guitar and surfs around on it and stuff and crashes into enemies and deals damage that way. Or the one that I've been using lately is called the pick slide, where he just does this run and slides across the ground on his knees and scrapes his pick across the where the guitar strings would be if it actually had strings on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really, really good game, and it's only $30. Like, there's for a game like this to just kind of drop out of nowhere, be absolutely fantastic, and just have an insanely good level of polish, and only cost $30 to boot. Like,
Yeah.
I wish we see. I hope we see more of that in the next couple years.
Yeah, me too. And like, just from what you were saying about it, like once you picked up and started playing Hi-Fi Rush, I immediately added it to my Steam wish list for the next time I have $30 to spare.
Yeah, it's so good. You would absolutely love the game. And I have also been playing a game that, well, you say you wouldn't love, but in our pre-discussion earlier today, I raised some very interesting points that you were unable to refute.
Yes.
But I picked up Fire Emblem Engage last week, Friday, and I finished it this past Friday.
Oh, jeez.
I've been doing my best to withhold my, like, it's Fire Emblem, I don't like it criticism. Because honestly, it's been since high school since I've touched a Fire Emblem game, and it's probably worth reevaluating the series.
Fire Emblem Engage is an absolutely fantastic beginning point if you're new to the series. And then also for someone like me, I've been playing Fire Emblem games since all the way back when Fire Emblem, what is it, The Blazing Blade or something like that, came out on the Game Boy Advance as just Fire Emblem back in 2003. I first played that way back when and just fell in love with the style of gameplay. It was really cool seeing it function kind of like a strategic board game. And then whenever you move your units to another unit and engaged in combat, it would zoom in on the two units and they'd fight each other. And I always thought that aesthetic was really cool to me. And then Fire Emblem Engage, they've refined that to a huge degree. Like now, the entire battlefield is actually fully modeled now in the battle scenes as well, where even before in like even as early as Three Houses, when it would zoom in on a battle scene, it would all be like a pre-rendered type of battle area depending on the terrain type that they're standing on at the time. But now in Engage, if you are standing in a specific point on the map and you go into a battle scene in that specific point, it literally, the camera zooms in super quick onto your character and it's right there on the map where they had their little fight. And that's a really cool touch, and it's all seamless now. And I would say the battle animations are a lot more, like, they play out a lot quicker than they have in the past, it feels like. And the engage mechanic is super fun. So basically, you have these 12 emblem rings, and you pick them up throughout the story of the game. And each one has the spirit of a main protagonist from past Fire Emblem games, from all the way back to Marth in the very first Fire Emblem, and all the way up to Byleth, the protagonist of Fire Emblem Three Houses, which is the previous mainline entry. So you've got all these characters that you get to spend all this time with and get to see them in a whole new way, and they contribute special powers to your characters, so you can equip a ring to a character. Like you start out, Alir, the protagonist of Engage, they start out with Marth's emblem ring. So Marth gives them a special sword right off the bat, and also they have special, what are called engage skills, which is kind of like a super heavily overpowered attack that you can only use once per engage, basically. So every time you activate the engage with your emblem, you get to use that superpower move one time throughout that engage, but the engage lasts 3 to 4 turns depending on how high you have that synergy leveled up. But what I really enjoy doing is because that also gives you a ton of options for customizability, because that allows you to take, say, if you have a character that specializes in like they're an archer, so their main and only real combat weapon is a bow. And archers are only good at a range. If a unit comes up directly adjacent to them and attacks them, they can't retaliate because they have to have at least one space between to function properly. So you can take an archer and give them an emblem ring like Marth, who gives them a sword, and now suddenly this archer has a close range attack that they can take advantage of.
Oh.
And additionally, in addition to that, like if you have a character that's like they specialize in axe combat, well, you give them like Emblem Ike, who also specializes in axe combat. And that synergy powers up and enhances their axe capabilities and makes their axe abilities even stronger. One of my favorite character combinations was actually a combination of this character. Her name is Panette, and she's like this little goth girl with a big old axe that she swings around, and she's freaking awesome. But I gave her Emblem Ike, and Emblem Ike's engage skill is called Great Ether, and basically what it does is it's got a range for about like, is it 2 or 3 tiles out in all directions from the character, and then they stand still for a turn, and any damage that they sustain throughout that turn while they're waiting from enemies is then retaliated and fed back at the beginning of your next turn, like double the damage. So I've actually sent Panette into like a group of like 5 enemies, activated Great Ether. She'd stand there and just take all these freaking hits, and then on the next turn, when the next turn comes around, she activates Great Ether, and it just completely wipes them all out, and it's so much fun to mess with. Like, it's just hilarious watching like 5 guys go down off of one hit. It's just great.
Yeah.
And then another of my favorite combinations. It's really funny because the game, you can see a ranking of like all of the, if you have it connected to the internet, you can see a ranking of like all the most popular character and emblem combinations. And right at the top is Alir and Marth, which, I mean, makes sense. Alir's the main character and Marth is the first emblem that they get. So I can see a lot of people sticking with it, but I liked giving Emblem Lyn to Alir because Emblem Lyn is a bow specialist, but she also has a katana at the same time, so she still synergizes with a sword user like Alir. But what's really cool is Emblem Lyn's her emblem of her engage attack is called Astra Storm, and it's this like super long range, like unblockable arrow storm basically. And she shoots like 5 sets of arrows up in the air, and then the range is like over half of the map, basically. Wow. So what I've been using that for, what I would use that for is like in missions where there's a boss at the end, I would get to where I was just within range of the boss, and I'm still like freaking halfway across the map from him. But then I could go in and activate Astra Storm and then do this huge amount of damage to the boss right off the bat and weaken them before I even get up to engage them in close quarters. And then another cool ability that Emblem Lyn grants is the ability to call doubles. So you can basically create up to 5 clones of yourself, and they surround the character to protect them. And then all of these clones can draw in enemy attacks, and if they draw in an enemy attack and they manage to dodge it, they can retaliate, and they have the stats of the character that they are copied of. So I gave them to Alir, who has just an insanely crazy ability to dodge attacks, because like the protagonists in these games always seem to be able to, once you level them up enough, they're like incredibly difficult to hit. So Alir is like ridiculously hard to hit, and then I make 5 clones of her. And then I have had bosses come at me, try to fight with one of the clones, and get killed by the clones. so fun. And then they also have a chain attack function. So whenever you have a group of characters surrounding an enemy, if they are of a specific type called backup, they can occasionally lend a hand and have a small preemptive attack whenever you go to attack someone if they're nearby. Well, these clones all have that attribute. So, and what's really cool also is like you can set them down and they just stand still wherever you set them, but you can go halfway across the map and they'll still assist like the character that made them, which is really useful.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had so much fun with this game. I looked at the clock after the first weekend, last weekend after I finished playing on then I had almost 30 hours into it just last weekend alone.
Wow.
And I don't know where that time went because it didn't feel like it. It felt like at most I put like 15 or 20 hours into it. It's just I was so absorbed and having so much fun like with the strategy of all the combat and that. It was really, really fun trying to come up with like creative ways to flank enemy forces and use the emblem rings in creative ways. And the game really excels at that. The story itself, I would say for the first half of it is like a 6 out of 10. Like it's not bad, but it's really not really impressive at all either. Basically, like you wake up and you have amnesia and you alone are tasked with saving the world. You know, it's like tropey RPG stuff. But then in typical Fire Emblem fashion, there's a pretty big twist about midway through, and then it just goes on this insane friggin' ride from there. And the latter half of the story is just super incredible. I loved it. And the way it resolved and all that. But yeah, I sure did talk a lot about Fire Emblem Engage.
Yep.
And finishing it got me to go back to Fire Emblem Three Houses and pick that one back up again. Because now I want to go back and finish that. And we mentioned earlier, like, stopping games at points where you're, like, really close to, like, the end of something or something like that. Well, I fell off of Three Houses a while back, and when I picked it back up last night, I was, like, right before the big plot twist in that game that sends that game into a huge rush. So I was like, oh, of course. Now it's, like, really good. But I also just wanted to jump back into it to see how the two stacked up side by side, because a lot of the discourse surrounding Engage has been that it's not as good as Three Houses.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that's coming from because Three Houses was kind of like the next Fire Emblem Awakening for the series, where there's different games throughout the franchise's history that have been like focal points to draw in a whole bunch of new players. And obviously, Fire Emblem Game Boy Advance, the one that I played, was the first one for us here in the States to do such a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the series kind of was in a little bit of a lull for a while. And then Awakening came out and like completely revitalized the franchise again. Brought in a ton of new fans. So then Awakening created like the first big branch in the Fire Emblem fandom.
Mm-hmm.
And then Three Houses came out and did the same thing again. So now, because the series is more popular than ever, and a lot of people that are into it now got into it with Three Houses, and they're playing Engage, seeing that it pulls back a lot of the stuff that they did in Three Houses, like the social aspects and all that, in favor of focusing more on the core gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people have criticized it for that, saying it's not as good. It's just a different type of Fire Emblem game. It's more traditional. It's designed as a celebration of the franchise. Just so I really enjoyed it as a longtime fan, but newcomers to the franchise that got into it with Three Houses might not enjoy it as much. But I still think it's a fantastic game, and I really enjoyed it. And I may or may not be making arrangements to do an actual full podcast episode reviewing Fire Emblem Engage with a friend of the show.
Cool.
So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully should have that in the next week or so. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. I'm really excited to do that, and he seems really excited to help out with it. So Should be fun. But I've talked a lot, so now somebody else's turn. So let's get on to our main topic, discussion of our gaming origin stories, where we're just gonna kind of run through what got us into gaming and why we enjoy it so much. So, Lucas, why don't you talk for a little bit?
Only a little bit.
Oh,
Boy, do I have quite the long origin.
ooh,
So,
Huh.
the NES was before my time. However, the NES was also my first console. So, my parents had a NES for a good while. I don't think we got our SNES until maybe like I was in first grade or so, and then it's introduced to all sorts of cool stuff like Kirby Superstar and that. Yeah, my very first console was the NES. I grew up playing the original Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers 2, Super Mario Brothers 3, Super Tecmo Bowl, a game that I just finally figured out what it was after years of searching, Pictionary.
interesting. Huh.
Lots and lots of Millipede, which is the sequel to Centipede. Play that game for hours.
It's a good game.
Yeah. Lots of balloon fight. Then also at the same time, I was sort of getting into PC gaming, believe it or not. And this was also on like an original IBM 5150 PC of all things.
Oh, nice.
I wish I still had that computer because they are, at least for my budget, unobtainium.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm almost certain it was an original IBM 51 PC with a Hercules graphics card of some sort, because we only had it was probably an IBM 5151 monochrome display, which is just like your classic green phosphor
Oh, yeah.
display. And so your options as far as display output for that was either the IBM MDA text mode card, which could only do text, no pre-rendered graphics, or you could get a Hercules graphics adapter, which connected to the 5151 like it was a IBM MDA card, but it could emulate CGA graphics on monochrome. So you're able to play a handful of more advanced games like Bugs Bunny's Hair-Raising Adventure. Yep, Bugs Bunny the Hairbrained Adventure, or the Bugs Bunny Hairbrained Adventure. It's about the most advanced game that we could play. It was by a company called High Tech Expressions. They originally made like greeting card software for the IBM PC, and then later got into video game adaptations, like with Bugs Bunny Hairbrained Adventure. They also did Mega Man 1 and Mega Man 3 for MS-DOS, and they're terrible.
Oh, boy.
I think I've heard of those, and they are very terrible.
Yeah.
Did you have either of those?
No, I didn't.
Good, I guess.
Yeah. I remember one day, like, my mom had picked up a bunch of 5.25-inch floppies from a garage sale, I think, and one of the games was, I think, a registered version of Apogee Software's Crystal Caves, and I just remember, like, just hearing the names, like, whoa, that sounds like the coolest thing ever. And then we couldn't play it because limited to emulated CGA graphics on a monochrome card.
Oh.
And I believe Crystal Caves requires at least EVGA, or not EVGA, EGA graphics. RIP EVGA. Let's see. There was also a Sesame Street game that I played a ton of. Big Bird's Special Delivery.
Oh, boy.
Uh, it was very basic. Basically, like, you delivered mail to people. Yeah.
Oh, so like Paperboy, but with mail, not
No,
newspapers.
not even like Paperboy. It was like a
Oh.
very, very basic like matching game.
Ah.
But yeah, I used to play that for hours because I was like 3 and it was Sesame Street. So yeah, then after probably about like 96, 97 or so, if I had to put a guess on it, we got a Super Nintendo, which I still have along with its box and along with the copy of Super Mario World and Super Mario All-Stars that came with it. Unfortunately, Unfortunately for me, the current NES that I have isn't my original NES. We ended up garage sailing it, and then years later, for I think my 13th birthday, I got a new NES, and it had the same sort of like blinking red light, poor connection issue that our old NES had. That was the reason why we garage sailed it. And I fixed it, and I distinctly remember my mom saying, "Wow, I wish we would have just kept our old one and could have fixed that way because how easy swapping out a 72-pin connector on those is."
Yeah. At least that worked for yours.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
Colin had the unfortunate luck of buying 2 NESs and both of them having slightly faulty PPU chips, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah. I'm gonna buy one of those top loader NESs, I swear.
You mean like the or the NES2, like the AVGN used to use before the Nintoaster?
Yeah, I think so.
Those are
Those
cool, and I want one.
they're so ugly compared to the original, but you know
Yeah.
what? If they're less finicky, and I have no idea if they're less finicky or not, but they just look like they would be less finicky.
I believe they actually are because it was the 72-pin connector and the zero insertion force push down mechanism that actually is the reason why the 72-pin connectors go out so often on the front loader. And I mean, also, like, if you look at the Famicom, that was also a top loader, like the NES2 and the SNES and whatnot. So, like, that was kind of just the better way to go about cartridges.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where was it? It's like 96, 97 probably. We got SNES. It's like just in time for the N64 to come out. We were always kind of about a console behind up until the GameCube, I want to say. And even then, we didn't get our GameCube until like the $99 price drop. So yeah, had a SNES for quite a while. Still have it. Still have the box. Still have the games that came with it. Back on the PC gaming front, we eventually got a proper Windows 98 desktop. So we were finally off of DOS, probably like 3 point something or another, since it was an original IBM. Onto Windows 98 second edition. A computer that I still have to this day.
Nice.
Yeah, it was in storage for the longest time, and at some point we had upgraded to Windows XP, and that is how I came to the distinction of, like, I didn't really care for XP, but I really liked Vista because we upgraded to a new computer when Vista was out. So Vista actually ran good because it ran great on newer hardware, but ran horribly if you were upgrading from older hardware. And I mean, XP was sort of the same way when, like, at least from my experience, but that's also because we had like a 533 megahertz AMD K6 CPU and like 256 megs of RAM. So like that wasn't gonna run XP great, even if it met the minimum requirements. So yeah, I restored it back to Windows 98 SE. At some point, my cousin had gave me an ATI Rage 3D Pro graphics card, so I put that in there. Got a Sound Blaster PCI card, which is terrible as a Sound Blaster, but it's great as a general MIDI card, so that's cool. And mostly used to play Doom and Duke 3D. So
Nice.
And then kind of after that, I fell off PC gaming for a while. We'll get back to that though, because
I had a friend that lived down the street from me growing up. This was before we moved to our house that we were in for the majority of my life. But they had a PC with Duke Nukem on it. I only ever got to play it once. But man, that was cool.
yeah,
Back in the day. This was like 95, 96,
yeah.
I want to say. Because we
Yeah,
moved in 97.
I think Duke 3D was out in 96, so yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, I just remember blasting those pig faces.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. My mom would never let me have that game when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
not that we had a computer that would run it anyway, but still.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. At 3D Realms actually like took the time to make sure that it was at least playable on a 486 DX 266.
Yeah,
which is really impressive because, you know, it's widely regarded as one of the greatest earliest first-person shooters, and
yeah,
it ran on a 66 megahertz 486, as did Doom. I think if you had a higher clocked 486, you could even run Quake if you were lucky.
Nice.
Yeah, we were on SNES for a while. Friends of mine had N64. That was kind of my gateway into Super Smash Brothers. Wasn't very good at it. Still not very good at Smash 64, really. At some point, after we had gotten our SNES, but before we had gotten our N64, my cousin had moved in for college. He was living in our basement, and he had bought a PlayStation. That was introduction to the PlayStation, complete with like the original analog-free PlayStation gamepad, which I still really want one of those controllers for nostalgia reasons. And I remember playing the crap out of the demo discs that were included.
Yep.
Introduced to some neat games like Brave Fencer Musashi and also A Bug's Life. Because there was a demo of the first level of A Bug's Life for the PlayStation. It was also like the first couple levels of Brave Fencer Musashi, and just remembering that was enough for me to revisit it once I'd learned about emulation. Also played a lot of Frogger.
Hey, I had Frogger on the PlayStation.
It's such a good version of Frogger.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I had... Remember when Pizza Hut used to do PlayStation demo discs?
Vaguely.
Yeah, I had one with... It's like the first level of Metal Gear Solid and the first level of Medieval on it.
Yeah.
I loved that Medieval demo. I played that a lot.
Yeah. I miss demo discs. They should come back.
Yeah.
I also miss shareware, but that's also because I don't have money for games, usually. Well, here's the thing with like the old shareware models of like id Software and Apogee Software is like the first episode of a game that they would usually release as its own shareware thing is still a ton of game for just like a free downloadable demo, basically.
Yeah.
Like, I have played through Doom knee deep in the dead so many times. And that was just the shareware version of the game.
Yeah.
There's still, depending on if you get like the full registered version or if you get the Ultimate Doom collection, like there's still 2 to 3 other episodes of Doom. Like, and Knee Deep in the Dead was just the teaser, and that's like a solid couple hours of gameplay for you. Yeah, bring back shareware. It'd be cool. Yeah, after PlayStation, we're still on the Super Nintendo until probably that console's life expectancy ended. I own a copy of Kirby Superstar, which is the last first-party Nintendo-developed game released for the Super Nintendo. That shows you how long we were on that console.
Right.
Then eventually, I want to say maybe like 4th grade or so, we got an N64, but specifically it was the Special Pikachu Edition N64.
Lucky.
Which I don't personally have anymore, but that's because my parents have it, and I believe they also have my copy of Mario Kart 64, because that was the big family game that we like to play. Still play it too. Like, yeah, usually around like holidays and stuff, we'll like go over and bring a couple N64 controllers, and we'll play 4-player Mario Kart 64. Just run through all the
Nice.
tracks. It's great. Only recently has Becca finally been able to threaten me, and that was after I taught her how to drift in Mario Kart 8. Finally a worthy opponent. Yeah, I think my mom picked that up on a garage sale. Kind of surprised me and my sister with it. First game we had for it was Donald Duck Going Quackers, which we talked about in our favorite licensed games episode. Played a lot of that. It's a very fun 3D platformer. I think it was by Ubisoft, actually, back when they made games worth playing. Hey, got him.
Got him.
And shortly thereafter, I think we picked up some sort of football game. I forget what. I want to say it was like NFL Quarterback Club. But then shortly thereafter, we got Mario Kart 64, which became like the family favorite. And then also we got Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. And that was my first introduction to the Zelda series. Because it's kind of chronologically backwards when we got Ocarina of Time versus Link to the Past. Because I want to say it was probably right around when GameStop was starting to get rid of their they had N64 games still, but they were getting rid of their SNES stock. I picked up Link to the Past for dirt cheap, along with a bunch of other cool games like F-Zero and Biometal and Mega Man 7, which is too expensive nowadays.
Mega Man.
Bought it from a clearance sale, and now loose cartridges a couple $100.
Gross. That's awful.
Mega Man 7 is so good, though. It makes me so sad. Yeah. See then. This is kind of a weird side tangent. Me and my sister were enrolled in gymnastics at some gymnastics place, I think out in Wyoming at the time, but there was a thrift store nearby. So we ended up picking up Super Mario 64 from there.
Nice.
Which is also a very fun N64 game. Highly recommend it. There was also some baseball game with a red cartridge. I'm sure that's... I don't know exactly what it is, but I'm sure you can find it based on the fact that it's a baseball game with a red cartridge. Because, yeah, my dad liked sports games. And to some degree, I did too. Like, I was really into NBA Jam, because NBA Jam is widely considered one of the greatest basketball games ever made.
I really liked Wayne Gretzky's 3D hockey on the N64.
I don't think I have any N64 hockey games, unfortunately.
And also NFL Blitz 2000.
I do think I have NFL Blitz, though. And Quarterback Club.
NFL Blitz was so much fun.
Yeah. I don't want to say. It was probably about 4th grade or so. Right around when the GameCube had dropped to the low price of $99. It was unfortunately at the same time that they were offering like the Zelda Collector's Edition disc with it for $129. We got a GameCube, and see, I only remember 3 of the 4 games that we got with it. We had gotten some games from... Oh wait, no, I do remember all 4 of them. There's SSX Tricky, Luigi's Mansion, Pikmin, and this game that no one has probably heard of called World Tour, which is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater clone, but you're on like basically a Razor scooter instead of a skateboard.
Oh my.
It's very fun. And then of course, like I saved up for a copy of Wind Waker, and my sister had gotten Super Mario Sunshine as a birthday present. 7th grade rolled around. My friend Ryan got me a copy of Phantasy Star Online episodes 1 and 2 Plus after introducing me to the game in like 4th or 5th grade and getting hooked on it. And yeah, I've been playing that game ever since.
Yep.
Fun fact, which ties back to World Tour of all things. My like primary character that I've been playing all of these years is actually named after one of the characters from World Tour.
Oh my god.
And I think it was, I'm gonna say freshman year of high school or so. Went on a family vacation out to Yellowstone. Took the Amtrak California Zephyr all the way out to Denver, and then we rented a car and drove all the way to Yellowstone National Park to visit my Papa Ray and Grandma Renee. And then we drove all the way back to Chicago and took the Pure Marquette back to Grand Rapids. In South Dakota, we stumbled across at a Meijer or Kmart or some sort of store. They had a bundle they had a Wii in stock, actually, because that was right around the time where Wiis were really hard to find.
Ah.
Oh, yes.
Nice.
So we got that.
Did you stop for a Wii and you happen across a Wii?
Found it in a bathroom.
No, not quite.
What was your Wii acquisition similar to my PS5 acquisition?
Unfortunately, no.
Oh, that's not as fun.
Yeah. So yeah, we found a Wii in South Dakota of all places. It's because nobody lives in South Dakota.
Nobody lives in South Dakota. Yeah.
But we also got the game Wii Play with it, which came bundled with a second Wii remote. So
nice.
it's like, honestly, just like the base system gives you Wii Sports, a Wii Remote, and Nunchuck, and then you get Wii Play, and it comes with its own Wii Remote, so you can play 2-player for all of the Wii Sports and Wii Play games.
All right.
A really good way to start out your Wii collection.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where collecting slowed down for a bit. Because, Wii games were expensive. So, rented a lot for the Wii to start with. But also, it was around that time with all of the whole virtual console stuff. It was about when a friend of mine introduced me to the emulation scene.
Uh-oh.
Piracy.
Lots and lots of piracy.
You were the one that put like a ton of ROMs on the network at our school, right? In high school?
I was not personally. I know the person who did it, though.
Okay.
They graduated my graduating class.
Yeah. The rest of us really appreciated that, by the way.
Yeah. Shout outs to Quinn, who put 64s and a expletive ton of N64 games on the school network.
Oh my god. The hero nobody asked for.
I think they also put EPSX E1.6 and a handful of PlayStation 1 games, because I remember him playing Final Fantasy VII during AP Computer Science.
Oh god.
Yeah. AP Computer Science was kind of a lawless class, and Mr. Groheist was cool, and he just kind of let us do whatever.
I had a computer class like that.
Yeah, I am so sad I missed the day that a bunch of students in Java programming put a bunch of desks in the way of the door.
What?
Yeah. They were Mr. Groteis had left the room for some reason, and the kids were left alone, and they just started piling desks right in front of the door, and the printer was in the computer science classroom, and another teacher came up to the door trying to get in, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And the kids are like, "We're preparing for the zombie apocalypse."
Oh, jeez. That sounds par for the course for one of Mr. Groteheist's classes, to be honest.
Yeah.
I remember one morning in AP Comp Sci, we got stuck on the Admiral Akbar "It's a Trap" thing. So we were like doing that for the whole morning, and then the next day after we thought it was all done and over with, Mr. Groteheist was telling us about this app called RunP, and what it is an app that, like, if you're going to the movies, you can like see kind of reviews of the movie to tell you what spots are okay to run to the bathroom, and you won't really miss anything. And like, me being me, as soon as he said app, I shouted out, "It's an app!" And everyone, Groteheist included, just kind of started dying there. So yeah, I was introduced to emulation probably right around the same time the Wii came out. I actually remember looking into like WAD injection for custom Wii Virtual Console games, because at the time stuff like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game, wasn't out on Virtual Console yet. But you could do WAD injection and replace the ROMs in a like NES Virtual Console game with a different ROM, and it would just run basically.
Nice.
But yeah, once I was introduced to emulation, I kind of started getting back into the classic games. Like, I went and revisited all of the Mega Mans because a friend of mine had a few of the Mega Man games on the NES, but like, I mean, I had Mega Man 7 at that point, but I really wanted to revisit them. It's also really...
Would this also have been right around when 9 and 10 came out? Or
yes.
8 and 9?
I think it was before 9 came out. Okay. Mega Man 8 came out on the PlayStation 1.
Okay. So Mega Man 9 was the NES look-alike one, though, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So this was before then.
Yeah. And yeah, like a friend of mine had, I think, Mega Man 1 and Mega Man 3. And then another NES game that I have yet to find was apparently Mega Man X on the NES, which, from all of my research into this, doesn't exist. But from what I remember of it, it was like a weird bootleg of Mega Man 3 with different level layouts. Yeah. Still working on trying to find that one. So yeah, Mega Man 1 through 6 were an obvious one for me. I was also really into the Metroid games at the time, from Metroid Prime 1 and 2, so I wanted to play Metroid on the NES and then Super Metroid. So yeah, I think emulators of choice at the time were let's say Nestor J and then ZSNES. Neither of those are great emulators by today's standards. Really use something better. I mean, Nestor J was alright and actually had a port to the Sega Dreamcast.
Nice.
So, a friend of mine had a Sega Dreamcast with a Nestor DC disc with a bunch of ROMs.
Play your Nintendo games on your Sega.
Yeah.
Sega does what Nintendo don't. Wait.
Yep. Yeah. Attempted N64 emulation, but found it to be not practical on the computer of the time, which was still the much beloved compact Presario with the 533 megahertz AMD K6 and the 256 megs of RAM and whatnot.
Yeah.
But it can handle SNES emulation pretty good, so I ended up playing through a good chunk of Final Fantasy VI, actually.
Nice.
Yeah, like Super Mario World and whatnot. Then it was like a couple of years later, parents had gotten the Windows Vista Core 2 Duo, whatever, with the NVIDIA nonsense graphics card and whatnot. I don't remember much about that computer, which is weird for me. Like, I can tell you the exact model number of my first desktop, but I can't remember that one. And then I've done so much research into the Presario, like, yeah. So yeah, they new computer about 8th grade or so. Finally able to do N64 emulation. I think I even tried out Dolphin at that point, but Dolphin was so early in development that it just wasn't worth it. When I could just go to Family Video down the road and rent whatever game I wanted to play.
Right.
Just play it on my GameCube or Wii. So yeah, like NES through N64 is like the main window of emulation that I really got into. And then of course also visiting stuff like the PlayStation with EPSXE 1.7 and early on visiting Sega games like the Sonic the Hedgehog games and amusingly enough, Michael Jackson's Moonwalker because I found out that existed and sounded neat on an emulator called Kega Fusion, which was sort of a proprietary emulator. Like, it was closed source, unlike just about every other emulator, and the guy who development had some sort of involvement with working on hardware for Sega, from my understanding, and it was a multi-console emulator, so it could do Master System and Genesis, and I think 32X, and if you had the BIOS, Sega CD. Never really checked out Sega Saturn emulation. Yeah.
I didn't know the Sega Saturn was a thing until I was like in my 20s.
Basically, yeah, me too.
It was so overshadowed by the PlayStation and the 64. That's like
it really was.
It may as well have just not existed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I became aware of it in high school because that was about the time I was starting to learn about gaming history of the Saturn just having a terrible launch. So many mistakes.
Yeah. And I don't know if we have any sort of international viewers, but a lot of that is like just the North American Saturn launch. Apparently it was a hugely popular console over in Japan.
Yeah, it was.
But it was so overshadowed in North America. I didn't know that there was a console between the Dreamcast and the Genesis.
Yeah. Me either. I thought it just went straight from the Genesis to the Dreamcast. I didn't even know Sega CD existed, to be honest.
I was aware of it from a garage sale, but I did not know why it existed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to think Sonic CD was just a PC game, which it is, but also it was first on the Sega CD. But it didn't help the Saturn a lot. It didn't help the Saturn any over here. The fact that there wasn't a mainline Sonic game on it,
Yeah.
like that's part of why you don't know about it, because the Sonic games on it are on the GameCube.
Yeah. Yeah, there was Sonic R and maybe Sonic the Fighters, I think, on the Saturn.
Sonic the Fighters was a arcade only game until Gems Collection.
Okay.
Yeah. Fun fact, that
seems like
game
it seems
that
like
ga-
something that could have came out on the Saturn because it's like Virtua Fighter with Sonic characters.
fun
is.
fact, Sonic the Fighters is playable in the Judgment series in
Oh,
the
neat.
Sega
Oh.
arcades.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's where I first found out about that game, was playing Judgment. It's like,
Yeah,
checking out the arcades. It's like, hey, there's a Sonic game in here. Oh, it's a fighting game? What?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a fun romp for a little bit. Like it's a good party
Yeah,
game
it's
when you play
it's not like super in depth or anything. Like it's
No,
no
it's
Street
not.
Fighter or Tekken, but
Yeah.
it was fun to mess around with inside of another extremely fun video game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the only other Sonic game on the Saturn was Sonic 3D Flicky's Island. They did a remake of it, of the 3D or of the Genesis version.
Oh yeah.
I think the main thing that changed, other than just like a graphic update, was the special stages were completely different and in full 3D.
Right. Yeah, and the sad thing is there was also there's been betas leaked of what would have been a mainline Sonic game for the Saturn.
Yes. It was not developed by Sonic Team. And
Yeah.
it was a mess. It was a train wreck of a development cycle.
Yeah. So maybe it's for the better that didn't happen, because that probably would have made the Saturn worse.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, Sonic Extreme looks like a very interesting game.
Yes. It's interesting from a video game archaeological standpoint. Maybe not a good game.
Yeah.
Yeah, after emulation and the Wii, I think that's when I stumbled across tasvideos.org for the first time.
Oh no.
Which is thanks to a YouTube channel called Red X Parasite uploading a encode of Hero of the Day's Super Metroid any percent real-time run. And I was just blown away by how, at the time, perfect it was. And that got me into, trying to make my own tool-assisted playthroughs of games. And I'm sure you can find it. But I have a whole old channel that I no longer upload to of tool-assisted playthroughs of games that are not great.
Do you mind if I
know where to find it?
Do you mind if I say the name out loud?
Oh, sure.
Because I'm curious. Where did the name Held Together with Tape come from?
That came from, at the time, had a hobby of making hats out of duct tape.
Yes.
All right.
I still have a few of them in storage.
Nice. It's as far away from what I would expect as possible.
Yeah.
Hey. All right.
Yeah. Got into trying to make my own tool-assisted runs. Some of them were okay. I almost met the real-time records for some of them. I wasn't very good, but I loved the concept of it, so I tried to do them anyways. And when it comes to hobbies, kind of anything worth doing is worth doing half-assed, even. it's a hobby, you're doing it for the enjoyment, you might as well just try and do it. And I had a lot of making those. That introduced me to a lot of different emulators that I still use to this day, but also don't use anymore because BizHawk exists, and that kind of filled the role of most of them.
Yeah.
I even was one of the earliest people to submit a bug report for BizHawk because
Nice.
I was trying to make a tool-assisted playthrough of Mega Man X2, and then I encountered a desync at the Sergase fight in one of the stages, and Mega Man X2 is one of 2 games to use the Capcom CX4 math coprocessor chip to help render wireframes and whatnot. It was probably going to have some sort of desyncing issue, and in this case, it caused things to linger on screen where they shouldn't have lingered on screen. And when I tried playing it back after completing that fight, because I thought, hey, this is really weird. Just like, yeah, hey, BizHawk devs, you should look into this. Yeah, never finished that playthrough because of that, but yeah. Then after the Wii, I graduated high school. The Wii U didn't come out until afterwards. At which point, with some of my graduation open house money and discovering a local game store called The Gaming Warehouse, I started getting really into console collecting. I had seen it going to and from the mall around the area, and was like, I'm going to stop in there one of these days. And I did. And they just so happened to have a copy of Mega Man 8 for the PlayStation. I was like, okay, I'm going to buy this game. I didn't own a PlayStation at the time. So I made subsequent visits to purchase a PlayStation, and then I forgot because I was like, the one game console I had that would have used a memory card that didn't have any sort of internal storage at the time was the GameCube. And I completely forgot that PlayStations need memory cards. So I had to make another trip out to the gaming warehouse just to pick up a PlayStation memory card.
Nice.
So 3 trips to TGW later, I have a PlayStation and Mega Man 8 and Mega Man X4 and X6 because those were also there on the subsequent trips. And I had, kind of built up a small PlayStation library from there. Just random stuff my mom would find at the thrift store, like Tetris Plus. Some stuff that I would find at thrift stores, like Metal Gear Solid, for like $11.
That's a pretty good thrift store find.
Yeah. I've got a copy of Mega Man X5, so I have the 3 PlayStation Mega Man X games.
Nice.
Mega Man 8. Then come to find out, my, at the time, girlfriend, now wife, had a PlayStation 1 of her own growing up. And, we had found her collection of games while going through stuff when they moved into their townhouse. So her PlayStation and the games eventually kind of made its way over to me, and I still have all of them. At somewhere before the PlayStation, but after the Wii, at a flea market happens every Thursday in Truefant, Michigan. I found a Sega Genesis with a handful of games. Most of them were sport.
That reminds me.
Titles. One of them was some sort of Bugs Bunny game, which was fun.
That reminds me, TGW's got a Sega Genesis in stock right now. When I was over there yesterday after work.
Cool.
And I almost bought it, but I bought a Game Boy Advance and a copy of Illusion of Gaia instead. But it was only like $35, so if it's still there next time I go, I'm probably gonna pick it up.
Much cheaper than a Sega Genesis and that copy of Phantasy Star 2 that they have.
Yeah.
That'll be for next week, though.
It was the revised version of the console, though. It wasn't like the big full-size version of it. But still, a Sega Genesis is a Sega Genesis.
I like the Genesis Mark II. It's more of like the smaller one.
The smaller. Yeah, it was one of those. It was $30.
That's what I have. And then, like, back in the day, in the Super Nintendo era, my cousin Justin had a Model 1.
Yeah.
My first experience with Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, and it was the coolest game ever. My cousins over in the other side of the state were more like, well, I guess in the case of Justin, like Sega, but then like PlayStation 2. So like I was always not good at games when I'd go over to their houses when I'd stay over at Grandma and Grandpa Brown's. But yeah, the Genesis that I picked up at the flea market was a Model 2. And then I would eventually get a Sega 32X, which is cool as a collector's piece, but was a mistake to purchase. And by that I mean the Gaming Warehouse, the last time they had Sega 32X games was I think when I bought the copy of Virtua Fighter they had.
Yeah.
They are very far and few between there.
Yeah, they occasionally pop up at disc traders. I've seen some every now and then in there. Whether or not you get the actual case with it, not just like their crappy, like printed out on regular printer paper, temporary placeholder case type thing, is completely the luck of the draw. But I've seen 32X games every now and then pop up.
Well, here's the thing with Sega 32X games, that they kind of downgraded the packaging from the Genesis. Like, instead of the nice plastic clamshell keep case you get with your Sega Genesis games, they just downgraded to full cardboard box.
Yeah.
So, like...
Oh, wait, 32X games were still cartridges, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yep.
I was thinking Sega CD.
Oh, yeah. I still need one of those, but...
Yeah.
I want one. I need one. I want to assemble the full Sega Genesis Tower of Power.
Was it a Sega CD or was it a Saturn that they had at TGW Holland that one day? That you still to this day regret purchasing. I think it was a Saturn. They had a Sega CD at Disc Traders, I remember now. Because I remember texting you a picture of it.
Yep. Yeah. TGW stubbornly does not want to sell Sega CDs, just the Sega CD. They insist on selling it bundled with a Genesis.
Yeah. Understandable.
And like, I don't know, man. Trading in my Model 2 Sega Genesis for a Model 2 Sega Genesis attached to a Sega CD seems really dumb.
Okay, what if you bought the Sega CD and Genesis, went to your car, opened it, then walked back in the store and sold the Sega Genesis?
That still feels really stupid.
But you could take it across the street to disc traders and give them the Genesis.
That's true too.
Yeah.
I've done that.
Yep.
I bought a copy of Final Fantasy IX from disc traders because it had the manual, and my copy didn't have the manual. That was all I needed that game for. So I took the manual out and drove across the street and traded in the game without the manual to TGW and got more than what I paid for it at disc traders.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Jackpot.
Winning.
Yeah, disc traders
And I
generally
use it to
gives
buy
you
a
more
pack of
money.
magic cards.
Wait, does disc traders sell magic?
They have a small selection, but no,
Okay.
I did it the opposite way. I bought from disc traders and traded the TGW.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so yeah, I bought the one pack that I bought of Dominaria Remastered so far. Pretty good pack. It had a foil gauntlet of power in there.
Nice.
It's all right.
I got a land from my one pack of Dominaria Remastered.
Ooh.
Sulphur Falls. Which
Oh,
I-
wait. Sulphur Falls isn't bad, though.
no.
Red-blue Checkland.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
I-
It's a good card. It's just
Yeah.
a land. Like, it's probably worth a decent amount of money, but it's very unexciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think because I bought a collector's pack, so it's got multiple rares in it. I think I also had one of the checklands in there too. I forget which one though. But a minute, I have a bad habit lately of buying magic cards, opening the pack, looking at the cards, putting them back into the pack, and then just setting it on my shelf.
Yeah, I do that a lot nowadays too.
I have a huge stack of opened packs of magic cards just sitting here staring at me constantly, and it's just I just don't have the will to do anything with them right now.
Yeah.
I've at least managed to slow my purchasing down a lot when it comes to magic cards, so they're not accumulating as much as they used to.
Yeah, I generally just buy one of the premier sets at this point because there's so many sets.
Yeah. That's kind of why we stopped doing magic episodes so early on in
Yeah.
the show.
Yeah. Because it was already ramping up when we started.
Yep.
And it's only gotten worse since.
Yeah. Yeah, like last night at Magic, Griffin was like, "Oh, hey, it's pre-release week for Rexia."
Sure
And we're
is.
like, "Oh, okay."
Huh.
Like they just, yeah. I was surprised too. Like,
Yeah.
feels like it hasn't even been a full preview season yet.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know they had fully revealed all the cards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So yeah, before the Wii U, got Sega Genesis, PlayStation, then got the special Wind Waker HD edition Wii U.
Ah, lucky.
I think also somewhere in there was Xbox 360 and original Xbox, because with graduation money, it just so happened that the year that I graduated, during summer vacation, Microsoft was running a bundle deal with certain laptop vendors or computer vendors that if you purchased a laptop valued at a certain amount of dollars from this or one of their partnered manufacturers, you would receive a free Xbox 360.
What?
Yeah.
That's whack. It was just the 4 gig model or something like that though, right?
That was just like the base 4 gig Xbox 360 S model.
Yeah. I mean, it's still a free Xbox 360.
Yeah.
Freaking wild.
Yep. And me, not knowing that you specifically needed a hard drive for Xbox backwards compatibility, had a $10 Best Buy gift card, so I snapped up a nice $10 copy of Halo 1 because they were selling like Xbox Platinum Hits editions of Halo 1 for dirt cheap. So yeah, unable to play that. I was annoyed. I looked on Best Buy's website for pricing for an Xbox hard drive, and like $80-something. Then on a trip to the gaming warehouse, I noticed, hey, that's like the same price for a original Xbox, complete with cables and a controller for an Xbox 360 hard drive. So I'm just gonna add to my console collection.
Yeah, might as well.
And then eventually I would get a handful of Xbox 360 games. Notably Halo 3 for $5.
Nice.
Halo 4, which I've still not played, but it was only $10. So not much loss on the investment there, not playing it. Blaze Blue, Calamity Trigger, and Central Fiction. Or not Central Fiction, Continuum Shift. Because I had at a friend's house got introduced to the Blaze Blue series proper after seeing that it existed years earlier. So yeah, then kind of after that, somewhere in there, I picked up a PlayStation 2 because my friend's PS2 Slim wasn't reading his copy of Star Wars Battlefront. So I bought a PS2 Fat just to try and run that, and it did. It worked out. And I would eventually get games for it, like Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy X and Metal Gear Solid 2. That was it for the PlayStations, and then honestly, Xbox 360 was kind of it for the Xboxes. My formerly girlfriend, now wife at the time, we ended up picking up a Switch for Christmas one year as a gift to ourselves. And then, that was kind of it for consoles. I'm not even going to bother with handhelds because it's not nearly as interesting. It's like, it came out and we got one. Yay. And then I only ever played it on car trips, so it wasn't really super important, at least to me personally. Yeah, then, as mentioned before, also into PC gaming, and weirdly historic about PC gaming. And then it was probably about 2013 or so was when I really started to get into PC gaming again. And it was Christmas 2014. I had saved up some money from work. I bought a nice, in air quotes, AMD A10 7850K. Got a good deal on an open box Asus Crossblade Ranger motherboard for it. Then brought over the DDR3 for my HP Pavilion, P6310Y. I'd, at the time, just recently purchased 16 gigs of PNY DDR3 for it from mine and Colin's friend. They had given me a GeForce 8800 GTS that was then upgraded to a Radeon HD 6970 that I still have. But I had to buy right-angled SATA cables in order to connect my hard drives because of how large the cooler was. But it impressively fit inside of the HP Pavilion tower, so cool. For Christmas that year, got the A10, got the new motherboard, moved the hard drives and RAM and whatnot over to that. Got the Cooler Master half 912 to throw it all in, and was into PC gaming properly, even if it was not great on the CPU side, because Bulldozer architecture CPUs are trash. And then eventually got, as a Christmas present from Colin, a nice Ryzen 2700X, and then got a Asus TUF X570 motherboard to throw it on, DDR4 and PCI Express Gen 4 drives, and RX 580, and eventually a 1080 Ti that is on my shelf collecting dust because I bought an R9 390X to tinker around with for 3D Mark benchmark scores. And I've been too lazy to change it out ever since. But it's nice and quiet because the graphics card has a hybrid water cooler, and I have a 240 millimeter all-in-one radiator for my 3700X. And yeah, it's nice and quiet because it's totally water cooled with just AIO coolers.
Heyo.
Yeah, that's I think just about it as far as my like gaming origin story goes. I'm sure that's probably entirely too much, but yeah.
The origin of Lucas.
Yep. I've been gaming since the Nintendo dawn of time, basically.
So, how about Neal over there? What got you into gaming? When did you get into gaming?
I think I'm gonna not go into my whole history. I think we're gonna just do the origins. It'll just be me getting bit by a spider, the metaphorical gaming spider. So we'll start way back in the beginning. The first game I really remember playing that I owned was Putt Putt Goes to the Moon.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun with this game as a kid, and eventually I got it into Pajama Sam, but I had it on a Windows 98 that my mom owned because my mom worked for an insurance company when I was a little kid, and then for GVSU, which is a university here in Michigan. And so she was already in tech things, so she needed a computer at home. So I had that for that reason.
Nice.
And Putt Putt Goes to the Moon, I don't actually remember that much of. I do remember there was this one puzzle where you had to do a maze in the dark, and I figured out if you put it into window mode, it would reveal the entire maze, and then put it back in full screen, it would still have the maze up. So I like cheated that.
Nice.
I just realized I am the only one here that didn't grow up with PC games to play. I mean, I had a couple, but it was never like a focal point for me like it was with you guys. Like,
I really didn't have any like gaming systems. My first full bit here is mostly PC games. Like I said, I had Pajama Sam. I had the second and third one, which were, hold on, let me pull up these names. Thunder and Lightning Aren't So Frightening, and Pajama Sam 3, You Are What You Eat, From Your Head to Your Feet, which I forgot how long the names of Pajama Sam games are.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Pajama Sam 1, There's No Need to Hide When It's Dark Outside, is still one of Becca's favorite games.
Yeah, I didn't have that one, but I've seen gameplay of it, and it looks just as good.
Yeah. It's that classic, I forget the name of the publisher, expletives. Humongous Entertainment.
Yes.
Yeah,
they did a ton of them.
Really good point-and-click adventure games.
Yeah, there was like a detective one that I had a demo of. Sly Fox, yes. Or Spy Fox. He was a spy, that's right.
We eventually picked up the whole Humongous Entertainment collection on Steam.
Yes, you can go back and play any of those games on Steam, which is awesome. I need to pick up the Pajama Sam ones. And
you can get them on a physical Switch cartridge, actually.
Yeah, that's right.
They did just release the Pajama Sam collection for the Switch.
That's right.
Too many games.
Too many games I want to buy. That actually sounds like the kind of thing that'll be on sale for really cheap in the future.
Probably. Honestly, I still remember seeing copies of Pajama Sam at Best Buy in like the bargain bin around the time I bought my Xbox 360 for free qualifying laptop.
And then, let's see, the other PC game I played back in the day, there's two others. The obvious one is the one I've already mentioned a million times, which is Return of the Incredible Machine Contraptions. Great puzzle game. Great music. Love the music to it. Still listen to it. I ripped the songs off the CD because you could do that with this kind of game. And then Roller Coaster Tycoon was also another big one for me. I had the first one.
Yeah.
I actually was not the kind of person, for the most part, that would just create crashes on purpose. I know that's what a lot of people love doing in that game, but that was not my deal until much later.
Yeah. I had a lot of fun playing the simulation modes in that too.
Yeah, I was terrible at making roller coasters, but I really like managing the parks.
Yeah. And then I'd get to Diamond Heights and I'd try and manage things, and then eventually I would like make some bad settings choices for the dueling roller coasters.
Yeah. Those things were hard.
Agoraphobia and arachnophobia, I think they are.
Yes.
And
Yep, that's correct.
They would always crash like super late into my scenario.
Yeah, I had that happen a lot too. I did beat it though, and I think I got stuck on the little small park.
Oh yeah.
That one was really hard.
What was it, like Trinity Islands or something like that came after?
I'm not sure. I did play Trinity Islands.
Yeah, it was just like a handful of small little islands that and the lake park.
There was one that was just like a really small park, like just one square thing, and it was just really cramped in. I think it had like an Alice in Wonderland theme going on too, if I remember correctly.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, there was like chess pieces and mushrooms and stuff. But yeah, I didn't have a ton of games because my parents were both kind of poor. My dad didn't even have a gaming or a computer capable with gaming. He had a what is it called, an LC2 Mac back in the day, which is like older than the first Macs we had in our school.
Yeah,
but that was fun just because I enjoyed AppleWorks, but not really a game.
Yeah.
So a lot of my gaming experience came from friends in school and daycares being like, here, try this game out, it's cool, and me not being very good at it. One that sticks out in my mind was a kid in my daycare at GVSU had Super Mario 2 Advance, and we would play that and go back and forth, and I got pretty good at it. Doki Doki Panic, basically. And we actually had a lot of fun with that, and I thought that game was pretty cool. And that was my impression of Mario for a long time. Only to find out later that that's not really what Mario is mainly like. But also, a big part of my origin is I had a friend in kindergarten who was older, but he was in the daycare after school daycare that I was in. He was always showing me Sonic Advance on the Game Boy, and I loved it. Sonic was cool, and he moved really fast, which was neat. I loved it. I loved fast characters. The Flash ends up being my favorite superhero. My favorite Bionicle was the brown one, Pohatu, because he could run really fast and he had the legs that would move. But yeah, so I was really hyped about Sonic Advance, and I loved playing that. I could probably get into the second level at most before actually owning it. And then one day he came in with Sonic Advance 2, and he was showing us all these cool new levels that I had never seen before. And one of them, the standout level in that game, is Music Plant. And there's bits where Sonic bounces up and down on piano keys. And I was just blown away. And then Then I got a Game Boy. And real briefly, we're going to do an aside about Frogger, because that's the game my mom gave me.
All right.
That was what came with the Game Boy that my mom bought. And I think she was trying to get one that was like fairly non-violent, which that game actually was kind of brutal. Like there was like spikes that would come up and your frog would just like split in half. Like there was no blood or anything, but it was kind of gruesome. There's lots of falling off of platforms into an abyss too, and your frog would die. There's a lot of frog death in that game.
Yeah.
You also fight death at the end, which I'm pretty sure my mom did not know about.
I'm pretty sure I didn't know about, and I own that game.
Yeah, it's weird. You fight the Grim Reaper at the end of it. They refer to him as Mr. D throughout the whole game, and then you come up to it and they're like, "Oh, D stands for death because he's a skeleton with the dark hood and a scythe, and he uses the elements to try to kill you."
Right. D for death, not one of a myriad of other words that D could stand for.
D for the bad guy.
But yeah, pretty much immediately after I got my Game Boy, the first thing I saved up with my allowance for was Sonic Advance 2. Had to get Sonic Advance 2, and I loved it. It's my favorite Sonic game. It's not the best Sonic game I've ever played, but it's my favorite for sure.
Yeah.
There are a lot of problems with Sonic Advance 2, but I loved it, and I got stuck on multiple bosses. I've talked about that in our episode about boss fights that wrecked us.
Yep.
But that game is a lot of fun because you just go really, really fast. And that's the whole point of the game.
I like when Sonic goes fast.
Yeah, it's kind of a contentious game in the Sonic fandom because it's like Sonic Advance is like a tribute to the Sonic Genesis games, and it feels very much like that. Sonic Advance 2 looks like it's going to be that, but what they're really adapting is the gameplay of Sonic Adventure 2 into a 2D setting. Because
Interesting.
it's more about the spectacle in that game of all the speed. And it is really impressive when you're going so fast that the screen can't even keep up with you. It's electrifying. But yeah, also I've mentioned Harry Potter Chamber of Secrets, Game Boy Color, good game. Played that a lot.
I had that one too. It's really fun.
It is a ton of fun. RPGs.
I like RPGs.
Yeah, you do. It's almost like you're constantly telling us to play Xenoblade Chronicles.
Yeah.
I might do that
play
eventually.
Xenoblade Chronicles.
I might honestly pick it up at some point if it's on sale or something on the.
It's becoming more and more tempting.
Yeah.
I will say of the three, the overall gameplay of the first game I like the least.
Okay.
I think they changed the battle system in Xenoblade 2. You still have, like, the entire franchise has, like, the auto-attacking thing. Like, that's a series staple, but they've changed the way the combat functions around it throughout the series. And I like what they did a lot more in Xenoblade 2 with the battle system, but that struggled from not being tutorialized very well, and it gets really complex once the full system opens up. Xenoblade 3 has just the best of all of it combined into just the one system, and it's by far the easiest to get into from a gameplay standpoint.
All right.
But
and Noah's hot.
and Noah is very, very is a very attractive young man. Yes. We don't deserve swimsuit Noah.
It's so good.
Let's see. The other game is Sonic Pinball Party, which is a pinball game. I always loved pinball games. I had one on the PC for a while that I played. Interestingly enough, Sonic Pinball Party has a story mode, and it's hilarious. It's a big pinball tournament that Eggman set up because it's how he plans to take over the world somehow. I don't know.
Of course.
But Your first match is against Knuckles, and Knuckles is just gullible and is tricked into being mad at you for some benign reason.
Right.
And you beat Knuckles, he's pretty easy. Then you rival Tails, and for some reason, Tails' eyes are red, and he's acting all aggressive. And Sonic is so confused, like, what's going on? Tails, are you okay? You seem mad. And the next person you fight is Amy, whose eyes are also red, and she's really mad. And Sonic still doesn't catch on.
Huh.
It's very dumb. But you get to play pinball, and it's pretty good pinball for a Game Boy Advance game. I recommend the Knights table over the Sonic table. It is like a Sega multiple franchise thing too, because there is also Samba de Amigo table, but it sucks. Don't play that one. It's like a rhythm-based game, and it's really bad. It's like very bad. Like I think there's just one button you press for the rhythm game.
Huh.
It sucks. But the Knights table is really good. Sonic's table is fine, but if you're looking at Sonic Pinball Party just looking at the Sonic table, it's not the best part of the game. Check out the Knights table. It's a lot of fun. I wasted a lot of time on that game. Just getting extra balls and seeing how high my score could go. And there's also, like, because it's based on video game characters, the boards change and you go to different levels from the Sonic games. Like the Sonic board is all stages from Sonic Advance 1, and Knights is Knights into Dreams stages from the Sega Saturn that we were mentioning earlier. And it's also got a ton of good remixes. I mean, as good as Game Boy Advance could be, but they're good songs. Like Open Your Heart is in there. Dreams is in there from Knights. What is the one from Phantasy Star Online called?
Forget. We've discussed this before.
Yes.
A really good song from PSO. And I don't remember the name of it right now.
Yeah, and the names of the soundtracks are kind of vague. Like in the OST for Sonic Pinball Party, that song is just referred to as Phantasy Star Online, which doesn't help.
Oh, it's a whole new world.
Whole new world. That's right. Okay. They also have like a remix of 2 of the songs from Choo Choo Rockets of all games.
Interesting.
I like trains.
It's just what? No. Choo Choo. Just Google Choo Choo Rocket and look at the box art.
It's some sort of puzzle game, and it was It was built by Sonic Team to try and flesh out how to make online doable for Phantasy Star Online.
Huh. Yeah, I think it's a like Sonic Team game in general. Like all the games in Sonic Pinball Party are just Sonic Team games. It's just like a Sonic Team celebration. But yeah, that's a good game. And from there, I just bought a few other Game Boy games. Like I said, my parents didn't have a lot of money. So like when I bought games that were expensive, it was for my Game Boy and it would be Sonic games. So a lot of my early games were Sonic games, and occasionally I'd buy cheaper games that interested me. So I didn't have a ton of games. But once I kind of discovered the internet in middle school, I started watching a ton of Let's Plays, and that's honestly really where my gamer origin started as a true gamer, was like getting into watching people play console games. So I was fascinated by the ones with stories such as Paper Mario and the Mother series, Earthbound. I watched a Let's Play.
Shout out to Sugar Conroy, probably.
Yes, yep. Sugar Conroy was like my favorite Let's Player back in the day. And I slowly got into other people like Proton John and Nintendo Capri's son that were linked to him. Josh Jepson.
I love you ever watch Proton John's Smash Brothers Brawl videos?
No. Are those more recent?
I mean, Smash Bros. Brawl is around the time that that game was out. But
Okay, no, I've never seen
oh
these.
my god, they're so good.
Huh.
It's just him and a bunch of friends playing multiplayer against each other. And oh my god, it's so funny.
Okay, now you're ringing a bell. Yeah, I think I have seen some of those.
Yeah, one of them he's playing as Sonic.
Okay.
It's great.
Huh.
It's great. That was when I became a Sonic main.
I was a Sonic main too, for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
In Brawl. I'm actually a Kirby main now. But
I was a Lucas main in Brawl.
that figures.
From Brawl forward, I have been a Sonic main. In Smash 4 on the Wii U, I switched to Charizard,
Uh-huh.
but
Smash 4 is
also
where I got into Kirby.
but also like kept up on my Sonic as a secondary, but I switched over to Charizard and Smash for Wii U.
I switched to Ganondorf for Smash for Wii U and Smash Ultimate.
Yeah. I haven't played Smash Ultimate in so long. I mean, it's been even longer since the last two, but I don't even remember. I know I still played Sonic regularly, but I can't remember if Pokemon Trainer came back or if they were separate still in that one.
In which one?
In Smash Ultimate. It's been so long.
Yeah,
I don't know. There's so many characters in Smash Ultimate. I have not played even like 10% of them.
And the only three worth playing are Ganondorf, Roy, and Lucas.
But I got so good. I got so good with Charizard in Smash 4 though. Like I was actually able to consistently go online and win matches.
I'm Charizard.
I was terrifying with Charizard in Smash 4. The only time I would ever consider myself good at that game.
So through YouTube and Let's Plays, I eventually discovered Clement J64, who was doing a Let's Play of every single Sonic game.
Ow.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's a commitment.
Yeah, and like the more obscure games, like he'd do a video of them, but he wouldn't necessarily play through the whole game. But he did cover every single Sonic game. It was nuts.
Wow.
But when I was in high school, around 2011, was when he finally got to Sonic Adventure, and I watched him play through Sonic Adventure. I had been exposed to a little bit of it from my best friend Ari, who loves Sonic Adventure 2, and I had played that with them before and been terrible at it. But a Let's Play of it by Clement finally was like, I want to play this, and it was 2011, and I was like, wait a minute. GameCubes are cheap right now, and GameCube games are cheap right now. I could just ask for one for Christmas. So I did, and that's where I got my GameCube, and that's where I kind of got into used game collecting, which it was the perfect time for that. Games were really cheap. I ended up getting a PS2. PS2 games were cheap. Ratchet and Clank 2 I bought for less than $5.
Nice.
Yeah. Which it's not an expensive one even now, but like it's now like around $20. So
right, yeah. Yeah, back then the baseline was like $10 for a lot of stuff, and now it's like 20, 25.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was out of curiosity. I was looking up the prices on the Sonic Advance trilogy, and they're all floating about $25, $30.
Yeah, they've never been.
It's not bad at all. There are definitely more expensive Game Boy Advance games out there, but
yeah, that's not terrible. But like, those games actually haven't been released ever. I don't think they have a re-release. So. Maybe on the Wii U Virtual Console.
Oh,
maybe.
I'm not sure.
I saw them on there.
Maybe just Sonic Advance 1. Or maybe in Japan only? Something like that.
Maybe Sonic Genesis is on there.
No. Actually, maybe we should talk about that. I bought that game. I was intrigued about the Genesis games. I had played a little bit of them through various methods. And I had, by the time I was in high school, I was really into the Sonic fandom online. and I had discovered a website called Zone Zero that has like really detailed guide maps of all the original Genesis games. And by then, I had already picked up Sonic Genesis for the Game Boy Advance, which is a terrible port if you don't know the context behind that game. They basically, they basically said it came out in 2006 at the same time, the same exact day Sonic 06 came out, and they're both terrible games.
Yep.
But Sonic Genesis is a weird one for me because it was my first exposure to Sonic 1, and it still has like some of the best game design in Sonic history, like in video game history. Like that game was really well made. Like the level design is great.
Yeah.
Part of it is like the physics and stuff, and that's what's messed up in the GBA port. But
yep, it's if I remember correctly, it's more or less like the 16-bit Sega Genesis level design, very poorly adapted to the Sonic Advance engine.
Yes, exactly. There's a lot of bugs. You fall through the floor now and again. Just weird glitches. There's also a ton of really bad slowdown.
Yep.
The tax on the system to speed up the music for the speed shoes slows down the game more than it would be if you didn't have the speed shoes.
Hilarious.
Yeah. But it's a strange one because, like, despite being a terrible way to play the game, it's still Sonic 1.
Yeah. Which is a very good game.
Right. So, like, even bad ports can be good. But yeah, once I got a Game Boy or a GameCube, it was like, okay, I want to play these games for real. And I got Sonic Mega Collection, and that was like, okay, these games play like the Sonic Advance games. This is a better version of Sonic 1. I'm a Genesis Sonic fan at this point. I was not as big a fan of the adventure games. My experience with Sonic Adventure 1 was running down the hill in Emerald Coast. Is it Emerald Coast? Emerald Hill? No, it's Emerald Coast, the first level. And you go around a corner and you fall through the ground and die. But I had kind of been expecting that because I had seen the Let's Play of it. So, like, those games aren't nearly as good as even maybe, I don't know, I'd argue Sonic Advance is better made than Sonic Adventure. They're fun games. This goes back to me saying, like, they're not good games, but they're fun games. They're a ton of fun. If you know how to avoid falling through the ground, you can have a blast in Sonic Adventure 1 and 2.
Yeah.
But yeah. So once I had a GameCube, it just kind of turned into, ooh, I want a PS2. I got Ratchet and Clank, and despite the brief time where I wasn't playing games and sold a lot of those games that I had, I did hang on to all my Game Boy Advance games, but I don't have my PS2 or GameCube collection besides my copy of Mario Kart Double Dash, which was scratched, so I couldn't sell it, despite the game working perfectly.
They saved you.
They saved me, thank God. But yeah, and since then I am mostly a Mario Kart person. I have a Wii for Super Mario Double Dash, and
You have a
for
Wii for Sonic and Mario at the Olympics.
Yeah, no. I've never actually played those games.
Me
I know some of
either.
them are actually okay.
One of the ones on the Wii
Surprisingly.
U is actually pretty valuable, surprisingly.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah,
Aside
I'm not
from the fact that it's
surprised.
a Wii U game.
Isn't it the London one?
I think it's the London one. I think it's
the
London.
London
Yeah.
one was really good. I'm pretty sure that's the one that had horse riding, which meant that Sonic could ride a horse, which...
Why would Sonic ride a horse? Sonic can run faster than the horse.
Yeah.
For the competition! Sonic isn't gonna, like, cheat on horse riding. Same in a race. He doesn't want to cheat.
That's true. I guess he could run faster than the carts, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Why isn't Sonic in Mario Kart yet?
I don't know. For a while, they had a rival game to Mario Kart.
Yeah, but still, I mean...
Sega All-Stars Racing with Wreck-It Ralph and Danica Patrick.
Yeah. Sonic All-Stars Racing Transformed is actually a really good kart racer. I highly
I've
recommend
heard.
it. And also the mobile port of Sonic, I don't know if it's still on the App Store. If it is, Sonic All-Stars Racing 1 on the App Store for mobile phones is actually a good port somehow.
Huh.
Like if you can get around touch controls or you have a controller set up, it's pretty good. But yeah, since we're on the topic of mobile ports, I was also an Angry Birds gamer at the height of Angry Birds popularity. But yeah, I've dabbled in a lot of different varieties of gamer eras and not really in the order that they came out.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's me. What about Colin? What is Colin's origin story?
When I was very, very young. I forget if this predates me getting my first console or was kind of alongside it, but my neighbors, when I was a kid, had an NES. And I would go over there and we would play things like Duck Hunt and Dr. Mario and stuff. And had a lot of fun doing that. I got my first console on Christmas of 1994. It was a Super Nintendo, and it was the version bundled with Super Mario World and Super Mario All-Stars.
Wow, same hat.
Yeah. The only thing, I don't have my box for it anymore, unfortunately, but I do still have the console and both games. But yeah, I got a Super Nintendo for Christmas in 1994 and was super excited, got it out, opened it up. My dad hooked it up for me, sat down in front of the TV on my little Thomas the Tank Engine little foam chair that I had.
Hell yeah.
And my dad and I played the first couple levels of Super Mario World together, and I played with the controller upside down.
Nice.
And I am convinced to this day I still play better than my dad.
I think I probably brought this up when we did the controller ranking episode, but the original version of the Gravis gamepad for the PC, that, like still plugged into the game port, it was modeled after the SNES controller, but it has, instead of being symmetrical like the SNES does, the little wing bit for the D-pad side is on the top of the controller, so that you actually could play it upside down intentionally.
But yeah, and I also had another really good friend when I was a kid, lived a few houses down the street from me, and we spent so much time after school and on weekends. I would go down to his house and we would play his Super Nintendo and we'd play Super Mario World, and that was where we found out how to do the shortcut to Bowser's Castle. So we make a habit out of running through that game on the regular. And that was where we played Earthworm Jim together a lot over there. And I mentioned earlier I had another friend that was down the street a few ways. I mean, this was back when I lived in the place where you had next door neighbors before we moved out to the country when I was 7.
Yep.
But yeah, no, that played Duke Nukem for the first time over at that friend's house, and
Got balls of steel.
yeah. But then I think I was either 5 or 6. This was before we moved, but it was after I got my Super Nintendo. But my uncle gifted me a Sega Genesis with a bunch of games.
Cool.
So that was where I got into Sonic the Hedgehog, because he gave me Sonic 2. And also one of the games that I had that I played a ton of was Pac-Man 2. That was the point and click adventure Pac-Man game. That was just
sure is a game.
It was totally awful, but oh my god, it was fun to just mess with Pac-Man so much in that game because he was such a coward.
It
Constantly
sure
shooting rocks at his head.
Sure
You watch him get all angry.
All time.
You watch him get all angry and storm off, and he kicks a garbage can and like hurts his foot. Yeah, that was an entertaining game. I never fully beat it because there was one part I would always get stuck at. But every now and then, when I just felt like being a complete and total terrorist to Pac-Man, I would slot that game in my Genesis and beat him up for a little while.
There's a weirdly large amount of lore in the Pac-Man universe.
Yeah. Yeah. Apparently, like, the whole thing behind that game is, like, his kids are, like, kidnapped. And he's trying to get them back from the ghosts. There's, like, this huge elaborate thing that he has to do it.
Wow.
But, yeah, that game was... It was a game.
Yep.
But then we fast forward a little bit. This was around the time the N64 and the PlayStation were out. I had already moved at this point, so I had made a new friend that wasn't quite down the street from me, but it was around the corner. It was a 5-minute drive from my house to his house, so I spent a lot of time over there as a kid after we moved. And his brother, who was, I think he was about 5 or 6 years older than us, was in high school working a job at the time. So he had money. So he had all of the latest consoles as they came out. So he had a Nintendo 64 and he had a PlayStation back before I did. So we would go over there all the time and we would play. That was where I was introduced to Ocarina of Time. Which was also my first experience with the Zelda franchise because I never got that on the I never got Link to the Past on the Super Nintendo when I was a kid.
So good.
It is. It is. And played through the beginning chapters in Ocarina of Time so many times that I just can't stand to do it anymore. But everything after that, I still enjoy. Like, we did manage to load up one of his brother's save files every now and then where he was past that and actually had the Temple of Time unlocked and all that. So we got to play as Adult Link for a while, and that was really fun. It was also where I was introduced to things like Phantasy Star Online when he had a Dreamcast.
I love Phantasy Star Online. It's so good.
And with the game being an MMO, we thought that every single character in the game was an individual person because I was like 9 years old when that game came out. So when we attacked an NPC on accident, we pulled up the chat bar to apologize to the NPC for being rude. The joys of being a 9-year-old and the early days of MMOs.
I don't know. Usually when I punch a villager by accident in Minecraft, I still apologize to it.
Oh.
Maybe not in chat.
Ah.
Okay. This generated.
But anyway, I got ahead of myself when I got to the Dreamcast talk because there's also a lot of stuff in the N64 and PlayStation era to talk about. Like,
oh boy.
I mean, my first experience with the Final Fantasy franchise, because my friend's brother had Final Fantasy VII when that came out, and we got to play that, and had no idea what we were doing in that game. We just knew that the dude with the spiky hair with the big sword was cool, and the combat was really fun, and the music was really good. So we played a lot of that, and I just remember that playing through that bombing mission at the start of the game for the first time, thinking this is one of the coolest freaking games I have ever played. And like I was also introduced to things like Metal Gear Solid there because he had Metal Gear Solid. So we did like the VR missions a lot, which was really fun. Never really got Metal Gear. Never really got past the first mission of the game itself, but it was still. I mean, Metal Gear Solid is one of those games. It's just fun to mess around in. Like, you get to a certain point in the game, like Metal Gear Solid 1, the first level is actually really, really fun to mess around in. And then there's like areas throughout the games, throughout the franchise, that it's more fun to just screw around with the NPCs and then get yourself killed and start over and just keep doing that over and over again than it is to actually progress the plot in the game. I remember there was this one spot in Metal Gear Solid 3 that my brother and I just played over and over and over again because there were like 10 guards in there. And it was just really fun to just run through it and just see how creative we could get with messing around with them and taking them down or like making them surrender. And in that game, they would like piss their pants if you scare them enough. Like, yeah.
Oh, Sneeder.
But another thing with the Nintendo 64, my friend who I grew up with across the street from my grandma's house, he had a Nintendo 64, and that was where I got to play like NFL Blitz, and we played Wayne Gretzky's 3D hockey, stuff like that. So that was where I was introduced to stuff like that. And he also, and he was also, for reasons I won't go into, just for like sake of my friends, but
Yep.
he wasn't allowed to have anything Pokemon.
Weird.
And this was at the time that Smash Bros was blowing up.
Oh no.
And we wanted to, my friend who lived next door to my grandma's had a copy of Smash Bros. And the three of us wanted to play it, and we wanted to bring it over to my friend across the street's house. But his mom wouldn't let us because there were Pokemon in the game. Even though we tried to reason with her, it's like, we won't play with Pikachu or we won't play with Jigglypuff. Can we please just play this game? And she was like, nope, it has Pokemon. Nope, can't do it.
Yeah, my cousins were actually like that too. It's just their parents weren't as good as monitoring it. They had a copy of Smash Bros. Melee at one point.
Nice.
And Pikachu's right there on the cover.
Yeah.
I don't think they ever know. I don't think they know to this day.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Roy Fire Emblem is my favorite Pokemon in that game.
I love Roy. But then my friend that was next door to my grandma's, also, that was where I was introduced to Resident Evil for the first time.
Oh dear.
As an 8 or 9-year-old kid.
Horror.
And Resident Evil 3. Just, I had nightmare. I didn't even play it. I was just watching my friend play it. And he was at one of the segments with Nemesis chasing you around. And just, that was so terrifying to me back then that I had nightmares that day.
Understandable.
From that game. And it wasn't until I played through the remake this past October that I just avoided that game forever.
Yeah.
And the remake didn't scare me at all, but of course I'm also freaking 20 years older now, so what do you think? Yeah.
Yeah, maybe in 20 years I'll revisit Alien Isolation.
Yeah. I gotta play that game again. I want to buy it again for my PS4 because I had it on the Xbox One, but I don't have that anymore.
Yeah.
I want to get it for the PS4. Oh, what else? Around that time, I think that was, I want to say the late 90s, early 2000s was when I made the choice to trade in my Sega Genesis for a Nintendo 64 of my own, and I got Star Wars Shadows of the Empire with it.
Nice.
And that was like one of the only games I ever bought for that thing. I rarely ever use my N64 for some reason. And it made me wish I kept my Sega Genesis.
You know how I am with like classic game collections.
Yeah.
I'll like very rarely go to the N64. It's mostly like Genesis and SNES.
But like at the time, I think I had already also gotten my PlayStation. So I had way more games for the PlayStation than the 64. So the 64 was just kind of there collecting dust. Eventually, I made a really, really weird trade where I had traded the Nintendo 64 and the one game I had with it for some Mario game on the Game Boy.
Huh.
I can't remember exactly what it was. It might have been Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, but I forget. It was so long ago. I just remember I was trading my friend at school, and for some reason, I think his mom caught wind of it, and she told the principal about it, and the principal called my mom to verify that like I wasn't being like coerced into doing it against my will or anything like that. Because it was like I was trading an entire console for a Game Boy game. But then I was like, but then I explained, I was like, no, this is, I never use this thing and I want to play this game really bad. So yeah. And my mom's like, all right, well, if that's what you want to do. So that was that.
Yeah.
He just unlocked a memory for me. In 5th grade, I won this little pen that had like multiple inks, and it was a rainbow color pen basically, and you could like snap different ink cartridges in, and it was
I
really
used to
cool.
love those things.
Yeah, they were neat, but I won it in like a class contest. I did the best on some kind of test or something like that. I don't know. But there's this other kid that really wanted it, and he's like, I'll give you something. I've got Sonic Advance on my Game Boy. I'll give you that.
Wow.
So he did. And I was like, sure, I will take that.
Yeah. Let's
and
do
that
it.
is my copy of Sonic Advance to this day.
All right.
All right.
Nice.
Jackpot.
I hope he still has that pen and cherishes it.
Yeah.
I wish I had a fun story like that, but the closest thing I have to that is I loaned out a couple mangas to someone I was friends with in junior high, and their parents thought that they had stolen them from someone.
Oh.
So they ended up being held in the principal's office for me to pick up
Oh, nice.
because of that.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I think FLCL Volume 1 and Volume 2, I want to say. It was really into Fooly Cooly back then.
Yeah, then another thing that I wanted to mention it in our Pokemon Gold and Silver episode, but I completely forgot about it. But one day when I was like 10, my mom, we were like staying at my grandma's house, and my mom came home with a Game Boy Color for both myself and my brother. And with those copies, and with those Game Boy Colors, were also a copy of Pokemon Gold and a copy of Pokemon Silver.
Nice.
Little did we know, until a week later, the games were just rented.
Oh.
My mom didn't tell me she only rented the games until it was time to take them back. So I spent that entire week just completely absorbed in the Pokemon Silver version, thinking, holy crap, my mom bought me this Game Boy and this game. Holy crap. I was just completely absorbed in it. And then my mom's like, yeah, where's that game? I need to take it back. And I was like, what? What? I just completely devastated. I mean, still had the Game Boy, of course, so I could have just got it. So I was able to get the game like for real later. But holy crap. But still, looking back at it, is like the fact that my mom just kind of came home with not one Game Boy Color, but two. One for each, myself and my brother. Was pretty cool. I wish I still had mine. I still have my mom's because like a year later, she bought one for herself because she wanted to play stuff like Space Invaders. And she bought the Game Boy version of Dragon's Lair because she was really big into like the arcade games back in the 80s. Her and my dad would go to her and my dad would go to the arcade and stuff back in the day. So she really liked getting like the Game Boy versions of old arcade games and playing those until she had to start wearing glasses on the regular, and then she just kind of stopped bothering because needing reading glasses to read and then trying to play a tiny little Game Boy Color game wasn't exactly enjoyable for her at that point.
Yeah, and Game Boy Colors were never backlit, unlike the Game Boy Pocket before it and the Game Boy Advance after.
Yep.
There was the Game Boy Light, which was a Game Boy Pocket with a backlit screen.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was the Game Boy Advance SP, and SP with a brighter backlight.
Yeah.
And I think the Micro as well.
I wouldn't be surprised.
But anyway, that wouldn't be
step backwards.
But anyway, that wouldn't be the only time that my mom has pulled a fast one on us when it comes to video games. Because you fast forward to, I think it was Christmas of 2004? I want to say because it's my freshman year of high school. So yeah, it was the Christmas of 2004. That holiday season, my church was running a gift drive for less fortunate families and stuff like that. And my mom decided that she was going to force my brother and I to pack up our PlayStation and all of our PlayStation games and donate them to the gift drive. Just completely out of the blue. No explanation. She's just like, you are doing this. And that is the end of it. Because I'm your mom.
Yep.
So I managed to keep like the really important games to me, like my Final Fantasy games. But
understandable.
but the bulk of our PlayStation collection and our PlayStation was packaged up and donated to another family. And then Christmas Day rolls around and I'm still feeling just completely just broken because I had no way to play some of my favorite games anymore because I was well into Final Fantasy at that point in my life. Like it was one of my favorite franchises at that point. Because I had 7, 8, and 9 at that point. Yeah, then that Christmas Day comes around and we open up a PlayStation 2 Slim and like 15 games for the PlayStation 2. Like like there were 2 big stacks of PS2 games that we got with it that day. And I was just like freaking taken aback. Like, holy crap, okay. Now I know why you did that. It was still a real dick move to do that the way you did that, but
oh yeah,
I guess I can get over it. And then like we were able to go to GameStop that day after we opened all our gifts and we had breakfast and all that stuff. We were able to, mom and dad took us to GameStop out in Holland and we were able to each pick out one more game of our choosing. And that was when I bought Final Fantasy X.
Yay, 10.
Yeah. And later that day, I got to play Final Fantasy X for the first time, and let me tell you, like, playing Final Fantasy X for the first time when you've played the other ones previously, like, that was a magical moment. Like, the first time you hear Titus say, like, listen to my story. This may be our last chance. Like, the first time I heard that line, like, voice acting in a video game, and it was, like, high quality considering the time of the game. Like, it was, by today's standards, it's definitely not the greatest quality voice acting, and it's memed to death nowadays, especially certain scenes. But, like, back then, like, something like that was just completely blew me away, and I was so hooked on Final Fantasy X at that time. And I was really, really into the Final Fantasy series at the time, but that was the thing that solidified me as a fan of RPGs as a whole, was finally experiencing Final Fantasy X. Like, that was when I decided, it's like, this isn't just a series that I enjoy, it's like, I enjoy this style of game more than anything else, really. And then all along that time, of course, we were also playing Halo at my friend's house because his brother had an Xbox.
Ah, yes.
So that got me really big into Halo. And I want to say when I was about 17, I forget, it might have been birthday money, but I bought an Xbox of my own. And I bought Halo 2. And was actually able to get the collector's edition with the fancy steelbook case.
Nice.
And then I also bought the Halo 2 map pack, which what was really cool about the Halo 2 map pack is you could just install it on your Xbox.
Yeah.
And then that was it. So we had this sleepover one night at the church that I was doing a youth group at the time. And we both, we had 2 Xboxes there. We had mine, and then my brother bought his Xbox, and then each of them have 4 controllers hooked up to them. And I brought my copy of the Halo 2 map pack over to install on his Xbox so we'd have all the extra maps. And we stayed up all night just doing 4v4 Halo 2 multiplayer on a LAN party with
The
2
old
TVs.
Halo LAN party.
Oh my god. That was one of the most fun multiplayer gaming experiences I ever had in my life. The next day we were involved in a car accident trying to go out to Plainwell to buy guitar strings. That was slightly less fun.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then the Xbox 360 came along. Then yeah, I mean the rest is really history. I mean
Yeah. If I remember correctly, wasn't there a PlayStation 3 somewhere in there that was sold almost immediately?
I bought a PlayStation 3 a couple months before The Last of Us came out. So I could play The Last of Us. And then in the meantime, while I was waiting for The Last of Us to come out, I bought all the big PlayStation 3 exclusives that I hadn't played that generation. Played through all of them, or at least most of them. I tried the Resistance series and didn't really care for it. More so because the DualShock 3 was a terrible controller, and less so because I didn't like the games. It was just playing a first-person shooter with that controller was an awful experience.
Boy, howdy, it sure is not great.
Yeah.
It
So
actually ranked F in our controllers episode.
it did. It's not a good controller.
Which actually, the video for that will be out today on Delicious Morsels YouTube channel. That's Colin.
All right.
Here we go. Yeah.
And by today, I mean when this airs, not right now.
Yeah, I found out very, very early in my PlayStation 3, my very brief PlayStation 3 ownership, how much I hated that controller for anything with any precision involved because those sticks were so loose. It was so hard to get minute movements down compared to an Xbox 360 controller.
Yeah.
I didn't like it at all. But I suffered through it so that way I could enjoy the Uncharted series because that was something I really wanted to try. And then, of course, The Last of Us when that came out. But then as soon as the Xbox One, PlayStation 4 were announced, I sold the PS3 with all the games to go toward the Xbox One that I pre-ordered because I missed out on PS4 pre-orders.
Yep.
Because both those were pretty rough. Not nearly as rough as the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 launch. Because
what is it like? 2 or 3 years later, we finally have stock.
Yeah, it didn't take freaking 2 years for those things to finally come back in stock again, but it was still a pretty rough launch as far as pre-orders go because they sold out really fast.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's really about it for my story. It started with the Super Nintendo and now I'm here.
With the Super Switch. Wait, no, Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
The Super Switch is the next console they put out.
I really hope they just call it the Super Nintendo Switch.
That would be so cool.
No joke.
I would love that.
Yes, just call it the Super Nintendo Switch, please.
Yep.
I would love it. But anyway,
launch with the SNES inspired version.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you like the color scheme, the purple color scheme?
Yeah. It'd be so good.
With improved Joy-Cons.
Yeah. With Hall Effect joysticks.
Yeah.
But Nintendo wouldn't invest in that.
They should really do
But that's okay because you can buy your own Hall Effect joysticks now and just swap them in.
Yeah.
Because Ghoulie Kit finally released their Joy-Con Hall Effect sticks.
Cool.
So whenever they come back in stock, because they sold out pretty much instantaneously, understandably so.
Yeah.
Gonna get some Hall Effect sticks for your Joy-Cons. As for myself, I have yet to experience drifting in any of my Joy-Cons. Knock on wood. That continues to be
same
so.
Here.
So I'm really not in a hurry to address an issue that isn't there.
I think
Right.
we had to send a pair, but we also owned 2 pairs, so it kind of didn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got 2 pairs, and none of them drift yet. But then at the same time, 90% of my Switch gameplay is docked,
Yeah.
Fair.
Same here.
and I
When did
use
you
a
get
Pro
your
controller.
Switch, Colin?
I got mine in late 2017, so mine's a launch
Okay.
Switch.
Huh. Yeah, mine's a Model 2 one. And I got a fairly new second pair of Joy-Cons.
Yeah.
My
My second
they
pair of
were a color
Joy-Cons,
that weren't available.
I bought a pair of white Joy-Cons that somebody was selling loose off of a Switch OLED for my second pair.
Nice.
Because I didn't want to buy a Switch OLED, but I wanted white Joy-Cons.
Fair.
It's like, the OLED's freaking sweet, but like, it's not really relevant to me because I play docked 90% of the time.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter what kind of screen the main Switch has if you're docking it all the time.
Yeah.
My thing with the Switch is that I would really like to just collect Joy-Cons, but they're too expensive.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Like, I would probably spend more money on Nintendo Switch controllers if they were like half the price.
Yeah.
Weird,
they would
but
get
yes.
they would get more money out of me if they made them cheaper.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joy-Cons are pretty expensive considering how small they are.
Yeah.
And how not great of a way to play a game is.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, let's bibbidi bop over to our weekly link to the past. Because we have a game today that is celebrated by many as a pretty beloved game in a pretty beloved spin-off franchise for Mario. Because on today, the 5th of February, 2023, the original Paper Mario on the Nintendo 64 turns 22 years old. So, yeah, I never played I never played the Paper Mario games myself, but I am familiar with it. It's a RPG series released originally on the Nintendo 64 with a really, really cute paper aesthetic for all the characters. Yes. Developed by Intelligent Systems, the company that is known mostly for the Fire Emblem series. And also they are the developers of the WarioWare series of all things.
Wait, what?
Yeah. They are the WarioWare developer. So between Paper Mario being your more traditional turn-based RPG, Fire Emblem, which is a strategic RPG, and WarioWare, which is WarioWare, I'd say they've got a pretty diverse set of games between them.
They sure do.
But yeah, Paper Mario itself was originally wanted Square to develop it like they did with Super Mario RPG, because it was originally intended to be a successor to that game. But at the time, Square was like neck deep into development for Final Fantasy VII and really couldn't spare the resources to take on another project as big as this. So that was when Nintendo reached out to Intelligent Systems to develop the game from there.
Neat.
Yeah. Happy birthday, Paper Mario! One of these days, I'm going to play this game. But I want to play Super Mario RPG first.
Yeah.
I played it very briefly back in the day when I was really into emulation, which I kind of glazed over in my origin story, but I didn't really dive too crazily into emulation. I tinkered with it a lot.
Yeah.
But I didn't really... I think I beat Final Fantasy VIII emulated on my PC rather than playing it on the PlayStation, but...
Yeah. Not like me, who dove headfirst into emulation after finding castvideos.org.
Yeah. But yeah. I think that's it. That's the episode.
Yeah.
That's the end. The end of episode 20. We've done 20 of these already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, We should have done 20 of these like 3 episodes ago.
Yeah, we missed a couple weeks.
Oh well, we're at 20 now.
Look,
Ah.
the Thanksgiving into Christmas holiday season is very hectic.
It's very
Yeah.
Yep.
Also, we lost our Halloween episode.
Yeah. I don't want to talk about it.
Like, we could definitely be further ahead, but at the same time, Thanksgiving into Christmas is also during like peak cold and flu season, so I think we had some sickness absences during that
Sure
time.
did.
Like, just the end of the year in North America is awful.
Yeah. Anyway, to the listeners, how did you get into gaming? Do you have any special memories from early experiences? You can email the podcast directly at fans.togp@gmail.com and let us know, as well as ask any other questions you may have, and we may read and respond to it on a future episode. But anyway, Lucas, where can we find you outside the podcast?
You can find me at Twitter at Karn_evil_999. I did not spoil the Royal Rumble. I do retweet a ton of wrestling news, but also some gaming stuff in between, and a lot of like gaming on Linux related stuff too. Then you can also find me on YouTube at Karn_Evil9, That One Gaming Podcast. I upload long plays of the games that we play for our That One Game series on That One Gaming Podcast.
And we got a new one coming up.
Yeah.
Really soon here. Yeah. So keep your eyes peeled, because the next game we're doing is going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
Neal, where can we find you?
I am VMK89 on the internet. You can search me up. I'm on Twitch. I'm on YouTube. Specifically on Twitter, I'm at IamVMK89, all lowercase. That is where you find me on Twitter, where I post links to whenever I go live, and occasionally I do little bits of hype for those Twitch streams. So if you ever want to pay attention to one of my Twitch streams, which are both Minecraft Monday and Tech Thursdays, where I edit That One Gaming Podcast videos, you can follow me on Twitter to get notified about that. Speaking of Tech Thursdays, I've been working on some of the videos for That One Gaming Podcast, and I'm going to be trying to get a video out on Colin's channel every Tuesday. The episodes that are new are going to come out 1 week after they come out on audio, because I just got the audio files, so I can't really edit a video that fast. But I'm also going to be trying to get backlog stuff up, and if it's not a backlog, it'll be a music visualizer of a song from one of the many That One Game albums that Colin has put out. Right now it's probably going to be Final Fantasy, because that's what I'm working on next.
Yeah. That Dark World visualizer turned out freaking awesome.
Yeah, I'm really happy with that one.
Yeah. And as for myself, if you are watching / listening to this on YouTube, you're already in the right place. That's youtube.com/delicious morsels. As Neal mentioned, there are frequently going to be video versions of the podcast up there, and music is coming up. I'm going to try to get some more edited myself as well. And also stay tuned for a new side podcast project.
What?
I mentioned the Fire Emblem Engage review that I'm going to try and throw together in the next week or two here. And that's going to be part of a new side series of podcasts for That One Gaming Podcast called That One Gaming Podcast Side Quests. And for now, they're probably mostly all going to be like in-depth video game reviews, one-on-one type deals, instead of having the 3 of us here. That allows for a little bit more flexibility in scheduling, because we don't have to get all 3 of us on here to do them. And kind of lets us spend a little bit more time talking about more modern games as well, in a little bit more depth than we do here on the podcast. So look out for that. There's going to be a review for Fire Emblem Engage, kicking that series off. So looking forward to that. You can also find me on Twitter at Delicious Morsel. There is only one morsel on Twitter because character limits suck. And Neal also mentioned music that I've been recording. Links to where you can find my artist profile so you can check that music out. It's going to be in the description of this podcast below. Really appreciate the support on those. It's been so much fun actually putting some music together on a regular basis for the first time in my life. So it's been really rewarding seeing people actually listen to that, even if it's only like 40 plays a week. I mean, that's still pretty freaking good by my metric. Because I could be sitting here and not making any music at all and not getting any plays. So I'm having a blast with this. And as I mentioned, we have another That One game coming up in a couple of weeks. It's going to be the indie hit Celeste. And
Yes.
I'm going to have some fun with the music for that one. That is for sure. But
And I'm going to not have fun with the B-sides.
But
I'm not going to play the B-sides.
Me either. But as always, if you liked what you heard here today, please be sure to hit the subscribe button where it's an option. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, because I hear they like that stuff. Hit the like button if that's a thing, and feel free to share this episode with a friend. We're going to be back in a couple weeks with that Celeste episode, but until then, have a wonderful rest of your day, and remember,
Play for the Cavs.
Stay for the Bears.